Now let's turn our attention to Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. It's a Southeast Asian nation home to about 53 million people and more than 100 ethnic groups. It became independent in 1948, and since then, for decades, it has suffered repressive military rule, widespread poverty, and civil wars. This country is no stranger to bloodshed, and this week it saw another deadly attack, the worst since the coup. You know, the coup when the military took power in 2021. They overthrew the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. She's a Nobel laureate. She's currently in jail. She's serving a 33-year sentence. Her supporters say this is a conspiracy to keep her out of politics. The military says it will hold elections soon, but it has missed its own deadlines. Since the coup, more than 3,000 civilians have been killed. The generals face widespread opposition. They try to quell it with lethal force. They launch airstrikes against their own people. Many of the opponents are armed. So there are violent conflicts between the junta, the military rulers, and the rebels. Yesterday, there was a deadly attack. The military carried out airstrikes. At least 100 people are said to have been killed, 30 of them reportedly children. This happened in the Sagaing region in the northwest. Some 150 people had gathered there for a ceremony. The opposition movement, the rebels, they were opening a local office. So obviously, most of the people attending were rebels, those opposed to the military rule. The junta decided to strike them. They sent a fighter jet. It dropped bombs on the crowd. Many people were killed. Some survived with injuries. But not for long, because half an hour later, they were attacked again, and this happened while the wounded were being transported. A helicopter fired at the site. Witnesses say people were blown to pieces. Dead bodies were heaped on the ground. The office building was destroyed by a fire. The scene of horror was engulfed in thick smoke. Myanmar's junta has taken full responsibility for yesterday's attack. In fact, they've tried to justify it. They said this action was necessary to tackle anti-government forces, and they accused the rebels of carrying out a violent campaign of terror.
Yes, of course. We had launched the attack on them. We were informed that the People's Defense Force were killed at the event under the attack. They are opposing our government.
The junta has repeatedly made this charge. They accuse pro-democracy forces of terrorism. They say such forces terrorize and kill civilians, while the military seeks peace. Experts say there is enough evidence to prove otherwise. They report large-scale human rights abuses by the army. Myanmar's military has reportedly burnt down entire villages, forced the displacement of more than 1 million people, blocked humanitarian aid, targeted schools, homes and hospitals, detained at least 17,000 anti-coup protesters, and needless to say, repeatedly attacked the opposition. So while yesterday's attack is horrific, it wasn't a first. Similar attacks have happened in the past. The world has condemned it. Critics say there should be a ban on the sale of aviation fuel to Myanmar. This will cripple the army's air power. Many Western nations have also imposed arms embargoes. The US and the UK recently slapped new sanctions. They target companies involved in supplying jet fuel to Myanmar. But it's not making a lot of difference, evidently. The junta continues to benefit from a haphazard international response.
We can't just sort of sit back and hope that something will get better. The international community, continues to issue these statements. But, the Myanmar people have already figured out that if it's just a statement that's coming out, it's not going to mean anything. There needs to be concrete action. And ideally, this will reinvigorate the effort to try to press for an international arms embargo against the Myanmar junta.
As Myanmar awaits change, the violence and body count is only rising. Atrocities increase whenever the junta comes under pressure. Because for this government of Myanmar, the people are the enemies.